That raises the whole issue of whether you're truly disclosing all the information that you should be to your clients, and whether your clients are aware that the whole system seems to be rife with conflicts of interest. Mr. Birnbaum, I want to ask you a question about an exhibit. It's number 104. And I'm going to describe it. I realize that's a big exhibit book, although it's well ordered. On July 25th, 2007, the CFO of Goldman wrote an email to the Goldman president. And in that email, the CFO responded to an update on mortgage-related investments that had declined in value and wrote, tells you what might be happening to people who don't have the Big Short.
Excuse me, are you on 104?
This is I apologize, it's number 26. So it's number 26, top of the page, tells you what might be happening to people who don't have the Big Short. There was also an October 29, 2000.
Was that a question or?
I'm getting to the question. 2007 internal Goldman presentation that seems to confirm that the company took the Big Short position. And that document asserts that early in 2007, Goldman's mortgage trading desk, quote, started putting on Big Short positions.
Which exhibit is that?
Is that 104? That's exhibit number 48. Mr. Birnbaum, this is my point. We have an email from the CFO that talks about people who had lost money, that tells you what might be happening to people who don't have the Big Short. We have an internal Goldman presentation that refers to starting to put on Big Short positions. And yet Goldman executives, this panel and the testimony to come, have stated repeatedly that Goldman never had an overall strategy to short mortgage-related investments. If Goldman's position were truly to just get back to home, to remain as neutral as possible, how do you account for all of these references to the Big Short?
I think the first thing to clarify is I wasn't on the first email that you're referring to, so I'd be interpreting David Veneer's words in that case. And I think in the other exhibit you mentioned, I don't know if it was 48 or what it was, but that departmental presentation, I didn't prepare that. I don't think I was on that email either. And I just want to clarify my position here was I had a role in the ABS group. The ABS group was a part of the structured products group, which was a part of the mortgage department, which was a part of the firm. So my role was I had a singular voice, and I mentioned in my presentation, I had a view, I took a view, and that was not necessarily the view of the department or the firm, and that didn't reflect the position necessarily for the department or the firm. And if you're asking me to interpret this email, again, I wasn't on this. So I would be speculating as to what these people mean.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think it's very clear what the Goldman executives meant. And I, too, am baffled that they continue to maintain that they did not have an overall net short position, particularly seeing the chart that you put out.
Do you mind if I comment on that chart for a moment? Because I saw a similar chart last week while interviewing with your staff, and I think that chart is at best misleading. That chart is an amalgam of positions that cannot necessarily, they're apples and oranges being added up together that don't reflect the firm's position or the firm's profit and loss statement to the extent the market would go up or down. And the analogy that I used with your staff last week, and I'll use it again, would be if you were to trade, say, $100 in Johnson & Johnson versus $100 in Google, if you were to trade those against each other, so let's say you were long $100 in Google and you were short $100 in Johnson & Johnson. If you added those two together, they would look like a zero on a chart like that. But I think anybody who knows those two stocks would know that the person who has that position would not be indifferent as to which way the market would go. The Google position would be much more sensitive than the Johnson & Johnson position. That chart is an amalgam of triple A's, triple B's, single A's, very different things being added together that don't reflect the firm's P&L.
Mr. Chairman, it seems to me that the documents that you have compiled, that your staff has compiled, tell a very different story. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.